Horizon Chess and this is Will China Invade Taiwan Next? Part 2, I guess, by the channel RealLifeLore. I did the half portion of this video, I guess, day or two ago. Yeah. So, this is a pretty intense topic, obviously, because of the, what happened with Ukraine, right? This kind of feels like, the conflict 2.0 of the, 2022 or something. But then again, all the, drills that are happening right now, it just feels like, China is showing force, but not really doing anything real with it or something. People are talking like China is not going to do anything. They're just trying to scare or something. But to me, it feels like you can never know with things like this, right? I mean, obviously there are people who says like, regardless of what, invading an island is not going to be easy. And I mean, yeah, that is that, right? I mean, you can chalk up everything on the spreadsheet all you want, but in the end, there are just simple difficulties. They are what they are, right? Invading an island is not a joke, right? With what Russia is doing with the Ukraine, they've faced a lot of difficulty, and that's on the land. And with the transistor thing, right? With the fabs that they're making, that's the main thing with the USA. Like what Taiwan is doing, that's a commodity the USA needs, right? And obviously, I said that in the previous part that it's a technology that USA have. It's just Taiwan has become more efficient at it. So anybody can do that technology. Obviously, I said that, but I didn't take time into effect, right? I guess even Tierzu is asking that question here. Like, is Taiwan the top of the food tree in the tech? No, it's not like that. See, if there is one entity who develops, over time develops technology, and they are the most efficient at it, obviously they are going to make it better and better, than anybody else, right? So it's not like anybody else can do it. Like just like how Congress passed the bill in USA that they are investing in this now, but they can just take the money like, okay, fuck it, we're just going to make the best industry that is. That's not how it works, right? Supply chain is with Taiwan. They make the most 90% of them, right? So they are going to be efficient at it. They are going to develop the technology better moving forward, right? You can't just pick up any money or check and just create a factory and just like gonna go better than what Taiwan is doing. That's not how technology works. So it's not like nobody else can do it or can't do it. Is that Taiwan is way too efficient at it. Taiwan has advantage of time. They've been doing this for a long time, so they're better than anybody else, right? And they are the 90% of the industry. So yeah, somebody can do it eventually. But nobody's gonna touch Taiwan if it's just nothing happens to the industry. They are going to best at it because they already have the lead, right? They've been doing this more than anybody else. But yeah, so let's watch it. Remember, if you like my Rickson, don't forget to subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more. Check out the Rickson, there's a link in the description, and yeah, let's watch it.
America has convinced Samsung to build a $17 billion factory in Texas, Intel to build a $20 billion factory in Ohio, and most peculiarly, TSMC themselves to build a $12 billion fab in Arizona, about the same price as a brand new Ford-class aircraft carrier. Crucially, this will become the first fab constructed outside of Taiwan by the company that'll produce the more advanced 5nm chips. However, TSMC is not about to give up their home-based Taiwanese advantage. While their Arizona plant will be producing 5nm chips, it won't become operational until at least 2024.
US is like, we're gonna give it to Intel, Samsung, and also TSMC, and we'll slowly just, some espionage here and there. We'll get back to speed.
The 5nm process is projected to be fully replaced by TSMC's newest 3nm process back within the Taiwanese fabs as the latest technology. And they've already initiated research and development into 2nm chips. And while the US government may be investing $52 billion...
See, that's what I was saying at the start. Like, if you're the 90% of the industry, you have such a chain of supply, the supply flow at that moment, you can develop this technology better and better than anybody else, right? You can't just pour money into a certain industry and say, be better than somebody else. That's not how innovations work.
Into domestic chip manufacturing, TSMC alone will be spending roughly double that, at $100 billion over just the next 3 years on building out new fabs, new research, and new development. And it will be very, very difficult, if not even impossible, for any other country, let alone company, to catch up with them in their technology anytime soon. And thus, Taiwan's semiconductor industry simultaneously dissuades Beijing from ever launching an attack because they need their chips, while also guaranteeing America's support even if it does.
So Xi Jinping's like, okay, let's bomb the place. And the general's like, what did you say? Let's bomb the place. And how your fucking satellite's gonna work then?
Does ever happen, because they likewise also need their chips. Because the global chip shortage that we've all been experiencing recently is only a foretaste of the absolute mayhem that would be unleashed were Taiwan to ever come under an attack. The loss of even a single year's output from the fabs on Taiwan would immediately bring the entire global electronic supply chain down to its knees. And everyone, including Beijing, are acutely aware and cautious of this. But that still doesn't necessarily mean that they won't attack. The most critical component to understanding Beijing's calculus in an attack on Taiwan is China's own looming internal demographic problems. China's own population is expected to peak by 2025, whereafter it will begin to decline steadily for decades as the country completes the demographic transition already seen in places like Europe and Japan. And perhaps even more critically, China's working age population already did peak more than a decade ago back in 2010, and has since been declining at nearly twice the rate of the American working age population. And unlike America, who welcomed more than 1.2 million new permanent residents through immigration in 2016, China has almost zero pull on foreign workers from abroad, as they only welcomed 1,576 new permanent residents during that same year as America, or 750 times less. On top of this, China has been experiencing skyrocketing household debt levels and faces a significant amount of resource insecurity. With only limited oil and gas reserves to rely upon within their own borders, and with an ever more energy-hungry economy, China is by far the world's largest single importer of petroleum, at more than 10.8 million barrels a day, which is 3/4 of their total oil consumption. And one set of projections from Tsinghua University reasonably calculates that China's oil and gas imports, primarily coming in from the Middle East, will peak between.
Yeah, so in China, the housing prices and shit like that is creating some kind of a gap that normal people can't afford it, right? That was, I don't know, was that a video or something article I saw that there are literal ghost towns in a way, right? They made some kind of a European style cities apparently. Right, copy the literal architecture. Like there's even London or something. Most of them are ghost town because whoever owns them are all rich people because they are the only one who can basically buy them. That's how much they were priced because of the gap that is becoming, more and more apparent. Because once the prices go up, it's really hard to bring them down, right? So some kind of a bubble creates, prices go up, and now this kind of a gap there, right? So, they decide to create more and more housing, but yeah, only rich people owns them now. So yeah, it's just weird.
Between 2030 and 2035. China's economy and relative power are therefore both going to peak at some point this decade. And that means that its most likely chance to successfully accomplish decades-long held goals, like the control of Taiwan, is within the narrow window available to them between now and 2030. If they wait any longer beyond then, they'll only continue growing weaker, while America will most likely only continue getting stronger, or at least remain about the same. And thus, this is why China has been acting increasingly aggressive in suppressing places like Hong Kong, Xinjiang.
Yeah. Do you remember those chats? I even remember creating a video about that. We talked about China and India a certain way. I said it like, okay, this... whenever somebody makes this kind of a chats, they, like I said, they have this mathematical mentality, right? Like in past 3 years, China and India has been growing at this level. So clearly next 30 years, there's going to be tenfold. No, that's not how things work, right? And I also said the innovation matters too. The comments, even from the, my own country, people are like, okay, you don't know anything, you're just afraid. Like, I live in India, what the fuck you talking? I'm not American here. So comments are like, you're just afraid, this and that India's gonna take over this and that. Like, I'm Indian, man, what the fuck you talking about? I'm just saying that this is reality. So what he's saying right now is opposite of what the charts have been saying, right? America's just gonna gradually go down, China's gonna go up, it's gonna become number one. Clearly that's not the case, right? It's gonna peak at a certain point and this is gonna slow down, while US is kind of gonna be at the same, because they have kind of monopoly technologies with them that is still, leading today's world. So until somebody makes a major technological breakthrough that that can be utilized by entire world, by some country like China, India, right? US is not just gonna go down like that because they have the monopoly over most technologies.
And the South China Sea. And it's why several American admirals and foreign policy experts have suggested that there is a relatively high chance of Beijing acting on Taiwan in some way or another by 2027, within just the next 5 years. And thus, even before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the 2020s were already expected to be the most dangerous decade of the 21st century so far. And in many ways, the struggle for Taiwan is already ongoing. Like many other countries, Taiwan maintains what's called an Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ, over their territory, an airspace over land and sea in which all aircraft must be identified and located within the interests of national security. Beijing has been
Yeah, so this was in the news just I guess a few hours ago or something, that China was conducting drills by violating this median line, so they were doing some drill here or something. I don't know.
Steadily probing Taiwan's defenses and testing their resolve by repeatedly flying military jets across this ADIZ. In 2020, they flew 380 of these military flights across Taiwan's ADIZ. And then, in 2021, they dramatically increased this to 961 flights, performing an average of almost 3 per day throughout the entire year. Taiwan's Air Force has had to almost continuously scramble their own planes to ward off these Chinese jets, and the sheer frequency of them.
Yeah, see, so I also said in the previous video how China is just increasing their influence in the Indian Ocean by creating bases. Somebody said like America has this much bases. I know that. That's not what I'm saying, right? Obviously, nobody can match American outside bases. Nobody can even come close to that. But China is kind of putting bases in a strategic places in the Indian Ocean, just so they can have somewhat dominated presence. Like, they're not going to overtake USS presence, but they are going to be there as well. That's the thing, right? So obviously this, like, it just from 2020 to 2021, the poll just got threefold how many times they violated the line of Taiwan. So I guess they're just testing like how much USA is willing to do, how much foreign entity is willing to do. They're just like, kind of playing a bit weird poker, right? Like how many of them are bluffing, how many they are going to be responding to anything, which is kind of fucked up. It just shows that they're seeing everybody's card, they're trying to see everybody's card, and eventually they're planning something. That's the point with the bases and this breaking the time online like that.
Has been causing qualified and highly trained pilots on the island to be stretched dangerously thin. And if the time ever comes that Beijing finally concludes that diplomacy has failed, it has multiple military options to select from in dealing with Taiwan that are short of a risky full-scale invasion. The Republic of China controls more territory than just the island of Taiwan. There are the unpopulated Patras and Taiping Islands in the South China Sea that are home to ROC air bases that Beijing could seek to eliminate or occupy in a more limited show of force. There are the small Matsu Islands that are only about 9 kilometers off the coast of China's Fujian province, home to about 13,500 Taiwanese citizens that Beijing could opt to blockade or occupy.
Look at them, they're like, holy shit, China's just right there. There's a Republic of China there, right? Taiwanese basically just look at that. Holy shit, China's just there.
While using them as a bargaining chip towards full unification with the Taiwanese mainland. There's also Kinmen, another group of islands that the ROC controls just off the Chinese mainland, a mere 6 kilometers from the PRC port city of Xiamen. However, Kinmen is home to 140,000 ROC civilians. So while it would be a more audacious move than occupying the Matsu Islands, an invasion and occupation of Kinmen would be substantially easier to pull off than an invasion of the Taiwanese mainland.
Too easy,
and like the Matsus, could be used as a bargaining chip towards the bigger goal of full unification. If these limited invasions fail to deliver results, Beijing could still utilize their navy to implement some form of blockade over Taiwan in order to attempt to pressure them before resulting to the full-scale invasion.
Yeah, the core, I don't want to pause too much, but if they wanted to do that, they would have done that a long time. I'm pretty sure China 10 years ago could have taken out that island that is closest to them, right? That's not the point anymore, right? Since the Cold War, that's not the point. The point is, can China go toe-to-toe with USA? And will USA, kind of go to the sideways and not really directly interfere? We know by now that that's probably not gonna happen, because you can say anything about USA, right? You can have view about USA any way you want. But if there is an interest that USA has, no way in hell USA is gonna back down, right? And with this like a semiconductor thing, no way they're gonna let that go, because that's way too important, especially in current age, right? In any air defense that USA does, which they take very seriously, they need these semiconductors. So they're not gonna just let Taiwan go, just like they would have let go of any other. And times like that, USA will full blown get in the middle of it. So that's why China is kind of trading slowly, seeing how USA responds with the breaking of the line and shit like that, because they know US is going to come full force with this one. So the point here is, like, can they go toe to toe with USA? Which I don't think they can, even with all the power that China is growing with. USA is way too ahead.
An option, but it may not matter, because any of these supposedly more limited options could still skyrocket international tensions and bring the United States into a war against them. Thus, Beijing may end up coming to the conclusion that all of these supposedly limited options are equally as risky as the full-scale invasion option is, and simply choose to go full send. But an actual invasion of Taiwan will likely entail successfully pulling off the most complicated military operation ever in human history, while successfully holding off the world's greatest military superpower and minimizing collateral damage on the island. No easy feat. It's been estimated before that in order to successfully occupy and subdue the territory of a hostile population, an invading army needs an occupation force of roughly 20 soldiers per 1,000 civilians. Owing to Taiwan's population of more than 23.5 million, that means that in order to have any hope of success, the Chinese would need to commit at least 400,000 troops to the invasion and occupation of the island. And that's not even factoring in the potential for casualties while crossing the strait or landing on the beaches. In reality, China would likely need to commit more like 600,000 troops into the operation, which is nearly 1/3 of their current active duty forces of 2 million personnel. To put all of these figures into perspective, the Allied invasion of D-Day at Normandy in 1944 remains the largest amphibious invasion in military history so far, and it only involved 156,000 invading Allied troops. The Chinese would require 4 times as many men to pull off a successful invasion of Taiwan, and they would need an absolute armada made up of thousands of transport and defense vessels to carry them across the strait, and thousands of planes and missiles flying through the skies above to defend them and lighten up the ROC defenses on the beaches. Building up the huge amount of supplies and logistics for such an enormous operation across the coast from Xiamen to Fuzhou would be impossible to keep a secret from America. And then there are only limited available landing positions on Taiwan itself. The eastern 2/3 of the island are dominated by mountains, and the coastline there is almost entirely rugged cliffs that are entirely unsuitable for a landing force. The western third is dominated by a low and gentle plain where most of Taiwan's population resides, but much of the waters in the west are shallow and hostile to the thousands of ships that would be swarming in from the mainland. Thus, there are only a small handful of beaches across the southwestern and northern edges of the island that would make for suitable PLA invasion and landing sites, and Taiwan has ample opportunity to build extensive fortifications across them to protect them.
Damn, okay. So obviously the landing places are very low. They would be in high number, right? So yeah, look, 21st century is not known for its competency, right? I mean, obviously, the way he showed here, like, you have to go against USA, right? You have to face this amphibious assault, and you have to make sure the collateral damage is not that much, and, destroying all that semiconductor factories and shit like that. Those are 3 factors you need to think of before invading. So no way in hell they can successfully do that, right? If they attempt everything and somehow even, dominate against US as well, they will have collateral damages, right? So I don't know.
Further, most of TSMC's fabs are located nearby to these beaches and would almost immediately fall directly within the line of fire, and their destruction would be a massive loss to the invading Chinese military. And even if they do successfully land on the beaches without destroying any of the fabs, a Taiwanese insurgency deeper within the mountains of the island's interior would be incredibly challenging for any military to snuff out. Ultimately for Beijing, a success in taking over Taiwan would sever the first island chain, break out their naval containment, enable China to freely project power into the Pacific, improve their nuclear deterrence capabilities, undermine the US alliances with other partners in the region, and potentially hand them the keys to the global advanced semiconductor industry and the TSMC Corporation, all but guaranteeing them the more technologically advanced military over America later on in the 21st century.
Yeah.
But there are numerous risks. If America and her regional allies like Japan and Australia intervene against them, they could all inflict massive damage on the untested and combat inexperienced Chinese military. A defeat in Taiwan could transform into an epic embarrassment and undermine the Communist Party's power and legitimacy at home. On the other side of the coin, a Chinese conquest of Taiwan would be a crippling blow to America.
So yeah, they are facing the same thing that Mao faced in his time, right? Like the PLA was a new thing at the time. It was a revolutionary, uprising in their country, right? Around that time, if he had tried to take, Taiwan with full force and badly defeated, right, his credibility would have gone down in his home place, right? So he didn't want that. He wanted stability. That he wanted to, look strong. Same shit would happen at this point. If they lose badly here, how are they going to project like, oh, we are China, we're powerful, this and that, what they're going with today in their own home, right? The instability would be too much, right? Their government would face instability there.
America and the Western Alliance. Overnight, the US's position as the leading power in Asia would be completely undermined. US allies in the region would become more susceptible to economic and military pressures coming from Beijing, and some might even switch over to the other side. Some, like Japan, might even begin to seek to fully remilitarize themselves and seek out nuclear weapons for deterrence. And worst of all, America could find itself locked out from the future of advanced chip manufacturing and lose their status as the world's most advanced military to China, while also suffering all of the associated economic consequences of US-based semiconductor companies losing their manufacturing hub. And there's no guarantee that the American military would prevail against the increasingly more capable and powerful People's Liberation Army, even if it did intervene. And so, while an eventual conflict between Beijing and Washington over Taiwan is uncertain, one thing absolutely is. Whoever between them is allied to or controls Taiwan by the end of this decade will be all but guaranteed to be the most powerful empire for the rest of the 21st century. And the reverberations of any conflict there will be felt for generations.
Yeah, I think that's a bit stretch. Like I said, I understand that Taiwan has the technology, right? And technology is by far is better than anybody else's. They are going all the way to 2 nanometers now, for fuck's sake. Everybody can't even do the 5 nanometer, which is a big leap. I understand that. But that's the thing. People now suddenly have this kind of a surge of information like, holy shit, we can't rely on Taiwan anymore. Even though they are the best, we are going to buy from them. But we still need to. So people will start to make their own thing, which they are doing right now. And as soon as that begins in a decade or two, people will catch up. That's how innovations work. Like if you have the best scientist, if you know how to make the technology, even though you don't have the supply right now, so you can't be the best right now, but in 10 or 20 years you kind of will be, or will be the total Taiwan. So I think the whole 21st century is going to be dominated whoever controls Taiwan. It's not really true. That's the case right now, but yeah, not the future.
To come on both sides. And based on that, both sides will have to do whatever it takes to make sure that Taiwan, in one way or another, is on their side and their side alone by the end of this decade. The potential for a Chinese invasion of Taiwan is an incredibly complicated and naturally highly speculative subject, and I didn't really have enough time to cover all of the nuances and context in just a 30-minute long video on YouTube.
Will China invade Taiwan next, I guess? So yeah, lots of variable, but definitely US's interests are the most affected here. If China does take out Taiwan, which means USA will get involved. But I don't know. There's so many variables here. You can't really predict what's gonna happen. But yeah, hopefully there won't be any struggle like that, because it feels to me that China has a lot of to lose, right? I get it that they're saying that it's not in our doctrine that we are taking Taiwan back. That's the whole point of their party in a way, right? It's in their core beliefs. But then again, China has way too many things to lose. Like even their image, if they lose this, their image in the global standing, and even in their own home country, their image will be badly stained, right? And the way it looks like, they will find casualties and collateral damages in Taiwan, with all the factories getting destroyed and this and that, right? So I don't know, even though they have this like we are going to do this one day, it doesn't feel to me that it's not going to happen, right? They're just trying to flag short, but they also know that they have a good shit going right now. Their economy is doing great. They're getting stronger overall. They have money right now. All of that would go out of the window if they fail at this attempt, and they know they're facing USA in the end. So no, I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, fucked up thing about this is that all the conflicts of the past with the Iraq and things, right? Only one country had, in those conflicts, only one side had the nukes, not the both. In this, China has nukes, right? So is USA. In the current conflict, Ukraine doesn't have nukes, but Russia has. And everybody's just kind of trying to help Ukraine. But if this conflict happens, China and USA both have nukes. So the end result would be devastating, right? Because if nobody graciously accept defeat, there's going to be a bad result in the end. Let's hope the fallout, the game, is not real, because in that US and China fought, and there you go, nuclear annihilation, and there's your fallout now. Let's hope that doesn't become weird reality. Alright, well, that was Will China Invade Taiwan Next by the channel RealLifeLore. If you like my subscribe. Yeah, I'll see you next time.